Attract the One, Chapter 1, Damaged Goods. After my divorce, I felt like I was missing something, or that there was something inherently wrong in my DNA that made me incapable of being in a long-term relationship. It's as if I was born with this defect. I thought I'd be single forever, and that really pissed me off. I thought, gosh, I'm a good person. I'm a good mom most of the time. I love people. So why am I single? Where are all the good guys? All I needed was one. I wasn't working on myself because I was focused on my kids, my imperfections. I was staying very busy and distracted. I was focused on my flaws, my mistakes, my cellulite, and my past. I spent way too much time thinking that I was damaged goods. But it wasn't all bad. It's life. Single mom life was one day I'm loving life. I'm spending the day with the kids or on a great day at the science center. And the next day it's a complete clusterfuck and there's a new hole in my wall. The 8 years that I was a single mom were super fun and also a son of a bitch. I felt like an idiot raising a son alone. When the kids were mean to each other and used cuss words, I put their soap in their mouths. I never, ever imagined I would be one of those moms that would do that. I only had to do it once with my daughter, Leah. Not another bad word crossed her lips, in front of me anyway. But my son, Brandon, was a different story. He had a little more spit and vinegar in him. I had to catch him first. And now I know he was just angry because he wanted to see his dad and he didn't see him very much. He just missed him. Leah is exactly the opposite of her brother in almost every way. She was so easy as a kid. She slept through the night at 8 weeks old. She never cried unless she was awake after 8 p.m. and always smiled and was always happy. And I think the only reason why she'd ever act out because Brandon was a little more, let's say, demanding of my time. And she was a little bit slighted. Hey, I did the best I could, and they have to have something to talk to their therapists about. Leah did say, however, that after I married John, I didn't yell as much. So there's that. I laugh. You have no idea, Leah. Revenge will be so sweet when they have their own kids. I can't wait. I can spoil them and then send them back to them. I bet they won't talk to their therapists about all the good times. All our road trips to San Diego where they would play in the waves for hours on end while I stood on the sand as their personal lifeguard, ensuring they stayed in sight and didn't drown. I could never get into the water in the Pacific Ocean. I still can't. I'm way too big of a wimp. We'd ordered Chinese food. We'd watch movies while lounging on the hotel bed. And I spent $1 jillion taking them to Disneyland one year. And all they wanted to do was get their faces painted and swim in the hot tub at the hotel. We loved taking road trips to Utah to visit my sisters and their cousins. One year we continued all the way to Idaho and then Yellowstone. We drove all the way to Texas one year for my 20-year high school reunion from Arizona. It's a 1,000-mile drive and took us 2 days each way. But it was awesome because at the halfway mark, we stayed in a hotel, which is always a treat. And there was a pool for them and a little mini bar for mom. We had movie nights at home, lying under homemade couch cushion forts where I'd always fall asleep 5 minutes into the movie. We spent hours playing cards and board games on the floor and reading books in my bed. I'd always chase them up the stairs and pinch their butts on the way up, try to outrun me. It's funny, I get emotional just reliving these memories of us when it was just the three of us. It's funny. I don't think they ever did outrun me, but I can't be sure. We had dance parties. We had birthday parties in the backyard. We'd go to the community pool every day in the summer and swim. I homeschooled Brandon for 2 years and Leah for 1. They stayed home with me, and we loved it. But alas, I had a full-time job, obviously, and I wasn't doing all that much schooling, as it turns out. And I would get stressed out about when I was doing school with them that I was thinking about all the work that I wasn't doing. And then when I was doing work, then I was feeling stressed about I wasn't doing the school enough. And I did end up sending them back to school. I tried to make things fun and just make the best out of what we had because we didn't have a whole lot of money, but they never realized it. I loved those years when it was just the three of us. But I was also lonely. And in full transparency, especially when they went with their dad. I yearned to have a partner where I would be cherished and adored. I wanted someone to put their arms around me when I needed a hug. I wanted my family to be complete. I went to a Christian church a handful of times, and the kids would go in the play area while I went into the service. I remember sitting behind a family of 4, the mom, dad, daughter, son, all holding hands and praying and doing something all together. I just sat behind them and cried. I wanted that so badly. I wanted a badass husband. Like, why in the hell am I still single? I found myself at the point where I was frustrated and tired of fixing myself. Last thing I wanted was another self-help book. I had read dozens of self-help books, and although all of them helped me immensely, my top book recommendations are at the end. I put all my favorite books at the end of this book. I'll list them out at the end of the last chapter. And I just didn't want to read another self-help book. I knew that to attract my soulmate, I needed to list everything I wanted. I had done that. And then one night I remember I just felt like giving up on the idea altogether. I didn't really believe that a man like that existed. And so I just threw that list across the room. I learned later that the root cause of most negative beliefs and low self-worth is the meaning we attach to the experiences we have as children. We develop beliefs from all of our experiences, but especially the ones that happen in childhood. And it's not the experience itself, because 2 people can have the same experience, but have 2 completely different beliefs about it. When I was a young girl, I was exposed to a teenage boy who'd gotten kicked out of his own home by his own parents. And my parents, they are so well-meaning and so kind and generous. They allowed him to stay with us for a while. I don't even know how long he stayed with us. And like so many disturbed kids, he found a way to get me alone with him, and he molested me. And I obviously had no idea what that was. I had no idea what molestation was until way later on in life. And I remember him telling me that his mom and he always did this with his mom. But I should keep quiet because it was our little secret, right? I did what I was told, quietly holding on to that for 2 decades, I think. I don't think I told anybody. Well, I didn't even know what it was, so I didn't think to tell anybody. So I put it completely out of my mind for the most part, and I don't even remember thinking that much about it until I was a teenager. And then I was in church listening to a lesson about being morally clean. So we were being taught that we shouldn't have sex before marriage. And I thought, well, I blew that one. Let's just add it to the list of all my transgressions. I stole some change off my dad's desk. So literally, I thought I was doomed and going straight to hell. And that experience led me to believe that I must be broken. And my core belief was that men only wanted me for sex. They didn't want me for anything else. After what seemed like a lifetime of failed relationships, okay, that's being dramatic, I know. I was just exhausted. I was tired of trying to be this perfect woman with the ideal body and weight and perfect everything. Because if you weigh over 100 pounds, you're fat, right? Well, I was a teenager in the 90s when supermodels were dying of anorexia. And so I was led to believe that the anorexic body was the only desirable shape. Now, there's a reason why they chose, and still do, choose models for the most part that are that thin. It's because A, they are chosen by most people in the fashion industry are gay men, and B, because beautiful, curvaceous, voluptuous women take away from the garment. So it takes the eyes, it takes the emphasis away from the actual clothing itself. And the other reason why is that if we truly loved our bodies and everything about ourselves, we wouldn't buy any beauty products. We would not do any plastic surgery. We wouldn't have to do the hair thing if we thought our hair was fine. We wouldn't have to do anything to our face if we thought our face was fine. Marketing geniuses, they know this. They must convince us that we have to be different so that we'll buy their products to be beautiful and desirable to men. And I believed that for decades. I was so tired of trying to have the perfect qualities that men would desire, to be like funny and energetic and fun and easy to talk to and like the outdoors. I mean, I like the outdoors, but I prefer to sleep in a bed indoors. I was tired of trying to acquire those qualities I believed I needed to embody to achieve what I wanted, which was to be loved. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. All of the above. My friend Lindsay would tell me one day, I don't think I have the relationship chip. I think it's missing. I thought that was so funny. And when my inner bitch would kick in, I wondered, do I not have the relationship chip? I wondered if perhaps people like me just weren't meant to be in a relationship, or maybe I was too stubborn or too type A to have the ability to share a life in a home with someone else. Could it be that only people born with this chip were in relationships their whole lives, no problem, and people like me without the chip were perpetually single? I rigorously ran through all of my traits in search of the particular part of my personality that was cause of my permanent singleness. Perhaps I was single because I was more sensitive than most. When I was a kid, if you looked at me wrong, there'd be a puddle of tears and snot at my feet in seconds. And I mean, there would be the ugly crying that makes everyone around shriek with laughter, as it turns out. Perhaps I was single because I was too optimistic. Maybe that's because I'm too emotional. I should learn not to be. Stifle my authentic emotions. Got it. Oh, wait. I already tried that. It can't be that. Oh, it could be that I'm too tall. The average height of a man is 5'10". I'm 5'10". But Karen, everybody wants to be tall. Heavy sigh. There's nothing good or bad about being tall or short. No one who's, quote, short, however they define short, believes me when I say this. Everyone thinks it's so glamorous to be tall. Again, that's programming from our friends at Victoria's Secret. Did you know that only half of the men on this planet are taller than I am? And way more than I? It's not a superpower. It's merely the distance between the floor and the top of my head. I could not blend in if my life depended on it, unless I was in Denmark. When I was a teenager, my grandpa told me once, "You're so big, you should be a boy." I love that he used the word should, like it was such a waste for a woman to be my size. I'm guessing that from his perspective, a man my size would have been great help to him around the farm. If I'm so big that I should be a boy, then naturally I should be shorter. I grew up thinking that being big was a bad thing, and I desperately wanted to move to Scandinavia. Here's another belief I carried for a lifetime. I eat too much. When I was a kid, I had a voracious appetite, and even though I was stick thin, every time I went through the buffet line at a church function, someone would always say something. They would always feel the need to express an opinion about the amount of food I was eating. Every time. Friends of ours in church would feel compelled to tell a little teeny girl something like, "Wow, you better slow down because your metabolism is going to." Or they'd say, "Eating that much will catch up to you someday." And I'm like, "What?" Or someone else told me, "Are you sure you want to eat all of that?" Like looking at my plate going, "Really?" I'm like, well, then I thought, okay, well, eating must be bad. From then on, I thought I would just be skinny and happy if I just had the willpower to eat less. I've tried to eat less my whole life. After a while, I didn't even know what type of less than I was trying to achieve. Less than yesterday, less than the last time I'd eaten. If I could just not eat, then I would be perfect. Every time I ate with other humans, I thought they were judging my every move, what I ordered, how much I ate, how much I left on my plate, and whether or not I ate the bread. Once I realized I held these beliefs, I could work on releasing them. Asking yourself new questions is a great place to start. How did those people know how much I was supposed to eat? Were they nutritionists? What is big and what is small? What is tall and what is short? It's all relative. And what is the right size? Literally every person is their own size. Most beliefs that we have, they're not even our beliefs. They belong to someone else. Always consider the source. My sweet old grandpa he had to be 5 feet tall. He'd been shrinking for years. He was like 85 years old. He had dementia. He couldn't remember my name, bless his heart. And of course, I looked like a giant to him when I was 15 or 16. As for the people at church, what beliefs did they hold that would compel them to say such things about my food? Were they judging themselves for what they ate? Were they uncomfortable in their own bodies? I'd venture both were true. Everyone's response to you has nothing to do with you. It's from their own insecurities. I was just excited to have yummy food we never had at home. I had had enough of that inner bitch telling me I'm big, I eat too much, I'm too overwhelming, and I weigh too much. Where does she get off? I happen to be of Viking descent, thank you very much. I'm strong like bull. I'm sensitive, I'm emotional, I cry when I want to, and I couldn't be quiet if my life depended on it. My idea of camping is staying at the Four Seasons, thank you very much. And there's no reason to be different. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I'm sure you've heard that quote before. It's one of my favorites. Because what we believe determines what we create. I used these tools in the following chapters to dissipate those beliefs I didn't want to have and to create the beliefs that led me to one of the greatest gifts in my life, my husband, who is now my best friend and biggest supporter. I changed my ugly beliefs about myself and about men and about relationships. I decided exactly what I wanted for myself and in a husband, and then I attracted all of it. So next, in chapter 2, I'm going to tell you the story about how John and I came together because it's so good and I never get tired of telling it. Side note, my first podcast guest was John, telling his story about his crazy, traumatic, horrific, unbelievable childhood. So if you're interested, it makes our story even better knowing what he endured the first 2 decades of life. So I'll see you at the next chapter.